Our guest today on Caribbeana is Dr. I would imagine, Dr. Melvin Pascal. Dr. Pascal is a food scientist. He's at Ohio State University, but he comes from Trinidad and from the village of Rio Claro. Welcome to our program, Dr. Pascal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin.
Yes. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine.
Right,
I'm
right,
happy
right.
to have this interview with you.
Sure. Well, listen, tell us a bit about what you do. When you say a food scientist, we common folks, we don't know about food scientists. We know people who ascertain things with food, experiment, but tell us a bit about what you do.
Well, food science, and you're correct, lots of people sort of get it mixed up with nutrition. Some people get it mixed up with culinary science. But food science is the processing of foods and the processing of foods to extend shelf life, for example, to improve the quality of natural foods, um, to enhance the marketing of foods. These would be some examples of food science.
Right.
We would take, for example, say apples, and if you want to extend the shelf life of apples, or maybe let's take something that is has more of a shorter shelf life, maybe strawberries, which has a pretty short shelf life.
Yeah.
We can extend the shelf life by processing it and packaging it so that people can have it for a longer period of time. And that's an example
Right.
as compared to nutrition, in which we look at what are the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals,
Right.
and culinary science is cooking, like
Right.
a chef, for example.
Right. Well, the things that are going around on the airwaves, this question of food scientists of the blending of things on food and affecting people in a negative fashion. Do you
Mhm.
encounter such postures?
Well, yes, we follow trends in food science and trends in the perception of foods by the public. Also, we follow what's happening at the government level with the legislature, for example, some of the
Yeah,
laws and regulations.
yeah,
One of the trends we are seeing within the last few years is people are becoming a little bit more conscious and concerned about too much chemicals in the food.
right.
And having food prepared in such a way that we minimize the amount of chemicals in the food is something that we notice the public is silently demanding. And so we do, yes, to answer your question, we do keep, tabs of these things.
Right. But basically, what you do is much different, because some people are even saying, well, it helps in fact, the politicians are playing it around, talking about it's in affecting people, giving young black kids all kinds of neurological disease and that sort of stuff. Those are very dangerous postures to take. How do you all deal with that kind of thing?
Well, one of the concerns we have is educating the public because, we as scientists, we would do research in the lab and we would go to conferences and we would share the information that we get from our research. But then how do we take these bits of information? How do we break it down, make it simple so that the average consumer can understand some of the basic important aspects of food?
Right.
And for example, and I'll give you an example.
Yes.
Um, there was a lot of consumer um, chatter, like I call it that, about the chemicals in cans, food cans.
Mm-hmm.
For example, BPA, which is bisphenol A, is a chemical that for a long period of time,
Yeah.
can manufacturers will put it in the can to prevent the can from corroding.
Oh,
Because if the cans begin to corrode when you put the food in the can and then you
right,
cook the food in the can, then you can really have a problem with tin and iron migrating from the corroded parts of the can into the food.
right, right.
But there was, you know, some data that had been circulating, and the consumers began saying, well, consumer groups, that is,
Mhm.
we shouldn't do it. And then, of course, you begin to see some governments and states and countries begin to put restrictions on the use of BPA
Right,
in cans. So as a result, we have to come up with new methods. But the science about the safety of BPA, the jury is still out there because some researchers are saying yes, it could be harmful. Some are saying no, it's not.
right,
The FDA hasn't rightly banned it, but some states have put restrictions. California, for example.
right. But what is BPA?
Bisphenol A is a chemical that is put into typically they put it in paint, and it helps to toughen the paint against heat. Because when you put food in a can
Yeah.
and you put the can in an industrial pressure cooker, which is called a retort, it actually cooks the food inside of the sealed can.
Jesus.
But remember that the food is boiling, so pressure builds up inside the can.
Yeah.
So the coating, which is to prevent corrosion,
Right.
must be able to withstand the heat and the pressure of the food and also the chemicals in the food because foods, even natural foods,
Yeah.
like peppers and things like tomatoes and certain meat products like chicken and fish, for example, you
Right.
do have natural chemicals. And when you cook foods, these natural chemicals, some of them, they may change. They have to change because the reason why we cook, because we cannot ingest certain foods by themselves.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
cooking breaks the food down to a state to which we could easily digest it.
Yeah.
Well, you have chemical changes, and some of these chemicals, if they were to contact the base metal in the can, they will cause corrosion. So we have to prevent that when we process the food.
Man, man. Listen, I'm so glad I'm talking to you. I am learning. I mean, I am going around like cooking. I love my red beans, so I'll open a can of red beans
Uh-huh.
and boil it and cook and not realizing the consequences of all of that. What could be if it's not done correct?
Yes. That's correct. That's correct. Yes. Well,
Man.
the FDA, which is in the United States, certainly, is
Yeah.
the body that is responsible for ensuring food safety,
Yes.
have very strict regulations when it comes to the canning and processing and sale of foods in cans. And the
Right.
reason for that is because we don't put our cans in the refrigerator to preserve the food.
No.
The, the, the package itself provides the protection. So if in fact the package is not done properly, it's
Yeah.
not sealed properly, or corrosion arises in the walls of the can, then bacteria can get inside of the sealed can,
Right.
and it could then cause contamination of the food. People can get sick
Right.
because
Right.
we don't put it in the refrigerator. It's not
Right.
designed for that. So the safety of the food is very important.
Right. Right.
The safety of canned foods and also all foods, I
Right,
should
right,
say.
right, right, right. Yeah, all foods have to be assured that no other non-palatable ingredients affect and impact on the food of itself.
Yes.
So why, dang, man, this thing, it's something else. How do you, I mean, how do you function in this? What's your role in this?
Well, as food scientists,
Yeah,
it's we work, we teach. I teach food packaging. That's my specialty.
yes,
And I teach packaging materials, the different types of materials, like we have plastics, we have metal, as I just spoke about. We
yeah.
have paper products, we have also glass products. So I teach, those different types of materials, the
Oh,
advantages, disadvantages. At Ohio State University, we have a food packaging lab and we
Right,
have instruments. We train the students how to use the instruments to test the packaging.
right, right,
We do research for the government,
right.
particularly the USDA.
Yes,
Sometimes it's NIH if we are looking at certain medicinal foods and or we're looking at nutrients and so it depends on the agency.
right.
I've done research also for NASA
Yes.
for the Mars mission, for example,
Ah,
packaging of foods for astronauts.
right, right, right.
How do you package foods that are to be taken into outer space where the environment is
Yeah,
completely
totally
different
different.
from what
Right,
we
right,
have
right.
here? We have to feed the astronauts. So again, that's a whole big area in itself,
Damn.
you know.
Man, yeah, 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 yeah.
And the environment is another issue that is emerging as a concern to
Right.
many governments around the
Yes,
world.
yes,
And people are becoming more and more conscious of the mountains of trash that is generated around the world.
yes.
And especially from certain materials like plastic, certain plastics,
Right.
petroleum-based plastics are
Mm-hmm.
very difficult to degrade. So
Yeah,
how do we redesign these plastics so that they could degrade easily in the environment without creating toxic runoffs and other issues that can happen?
yeah,
There's all these are issues that we get involved in with food science, at least in my area,
yes.
food packaging with materials.
Right, right, right. Man, it's excellent to know of this, because I mean, folks, get up, go to work, go in the market, buy this, do that, and you come home, you open the can, cook, and not
Uh,
realizing that there are consequences in terms of the use of these things, that it could
yes,
really impact on you.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah. So how long have you been doing this?
Well, it's about going 50 years. I started in 1972, or 73 rather, in Trinidad. I
Yeah.
started working at Carib Glassworks Limited, which is a packaging company that made glass bottles and jars for
Right,
food and pharmaceutical products.
right.
And while there, I did my undergrad studies, and then I came to the United States. I went to Michigan State University, did graduate studies in packaging science, and then I did my PhD in food science and environmental toxicology.
Wow.
So when I was finished with graduate school,
Yeah.
I worked for the Food and Drug Administration and I trained inspectors, I did research. Then I went to Ohio State University, which is where I am right now.
Right,
So
right.
all my life, I have worked
Yes,
with food science, with food packaging in particular.
I'm telling you. But man, even in my sweet little Trinidad, this thing
Mm,
going on and we don't even know it. I doubt people are conscious of the significance and relevance of such a function in the island of itself. Man, I listen, I applaud you, man, and thanks. What
yeah.
do you advise people to look out for or to be prepared to cope with as we advance, especially in this season?
Mhm. Well, I would think that one of the issues that are currently engaging the minds of food scientists or food packaging individuals in particular
Yeah,
around the world is the environmental issue. They, you know, waste materials particularly from food packaging.
yeah,
And this is all aspects of waste. Yes, we know that plastics, petroleum-based plastics in themselves, um, it takes a long time to degrade, especially if the material is buried
right,
in landfills or indiscriminately discarded. And these materials, these packages wind up in the streams and then they wind up in the ocean. There are efforts and attempts to solve this problem. I must say that. And recycling, for example.
yeah,
So you find that there is an effort now to have various bins so people can put plastic in one bin, glass in
right,
another,
right,
paper products in another. I would
right,
say the consumer, but we need the consumer. We need people to do this voluntarily
Yes.
because it's very difficult to legislate people to do it.
Yeah.
So the education, the consciousness that we want to be good citizens of the environment and we want to minimize trash, first of all,
Yeah.
because right now there is a big concern. I've done work with the United Nations, the FAO in Rome, with reducing food loss and waste. How can we reduce food loss and waste? Because when we discard unused food or
Yeah.
food that spoil because for whatever reason they
Right.
wind up in the trash, and then it winds up in the dump. So
Yeah.
how can we reuse these to make products from food waste, like skins, for example?
Right.
Right now, I'm doing some research using apple skins and orange skins to make plastic. Come up with any method that is designed to reduce the environmental burden is helpful to us.
Yes. Yeah.
You see? So I would say this is Christmas. We are going to be giving gifts. We're going to generate a lot of wrapping and packaging of our gifts. But let's be mindful of the amount of trash that we put into the environment. You
Okay.
know,
Right.
where there are opportunities to recycle, I would say recycle. Let's see if we could minimize the amount of packaging that we use in our gifts.
All right, Melvin
That's what I
Pascal.
would say.
Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you very much, man. And
Oh, you're very welcome.
I'm sure you're enjoying yourself. You're looking forward to your rum punch and punch a creme and black cat and all that kind of thing, eh?
Well, I love Christmas and I like spending Christmas with family and I enjoy coming to Trinidad where I grew up. So I can, as you said, eat some of the delicacies, the Christmas delicacies, and I do enjoy it. Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. I've been speaking with Melvin Pascal, who is with the Ohio State University Sustainability Institute, and we've been talking a very interesting talk about the management of food waste and so forth. This is Von Martin. Caribbeana continues.
Well, thank you very much again. This was
Take
really a
care.
pleasure for me to speak with you.
Right. Okay. Take care.
Yes.